I don't know what I'm doing here, but I think Granny knows.
Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude. Oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is the place you want to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars. The Beverly Hillbillies.
Whoa! Good morning from the banks of the Guadalupe River here in good old Kerrville, Texas. This is Stevie the Guide saying good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And I hope you're, if you are in fact up at this hour, I hope you're feeling good, and I hope you do not have a case of neurasthenia. Good Lord. I hope you don't have neurasthenia. I have had a case of neurasthenia from time to time. I've been neurasthenic. And this word really grabs me. Neurasthenia. It is actually some kind of an ailment. Let me see what I can find about that. Neurasthenia. 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 An ill-defined medical condition characterized by lassitude, fatigue, headache, and irritability associated chiefly with emotional disturbance. Neurasthenia. It's an ill-defined ailment that's associated with emotional disturbance, basically. Oh, and that one word, I had to look up this other word, lassitude. See, let me read that again. Neurasthenia, an ill-defined medical condition characterized by lassitude, fatigue, headache, and irritability associated chiefly with emotional disturbance. All right. Lassitude means physical and mental weariness. Lassitude. I'm tired. I don't know why I'm tired. Have you ever heard people always telling you that they're tired? All right. I know how this can be. And what is it that makes people succumb to different things? I'm not saying that people don't genuinely have neurasthenia and the lassitude associated with neurasthenia. But I'm just saying that I think a lot of people, when their vibrations are not high, when they're not spinning at the highest revolution, then they can devolve. Their vibration can go down, and they can sink into a state that they consider some sort of an ailment. And once again, let me reiterate as many times as necessary, I am not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a professionally licensed anything except a real estate broker here in Kerrville, Texas. If you want to buy some real estate from me, I'd be happy to show you around and give you the nickel tour. But that's the only thing that I have a professional license for. It's just my observation and the neurasthenic qualities that I have in myself. What I mean by that is when things aren't going my way, when I can't really, when I'm not in the groove, in the flow, when I'm not sailing along in the right direction, I don't quite know which way to go, and the job I'm in is not good, or the relationship I'm in is not working, or whatever it may be. I think it is quite easy to fall into a neurasthenic condition. Let me read to you just a couple of things. neurasthenia is defined as the core symptoms are identified as mental and or physical fatigue, accompanied by at least 2 of 7 symptoms: dizziness, dysplasia, muscular aches or pains, tension, headaches, inability to relax, irritability, and sleep disturbance. To make the diagnosis, it must be a persistent illness. All that stuff seems like to me, the layman, that a bunch of that, those minor aches and pains, that inability to relax and irritability and sleep disturbance, a lot of that tends to go away if they tell you you're getting on a plane to go to Tahiti tomorrow. If you're about to engage in something that you really want to engage in, funny how a lot of those little aches and pains and tiredness and stuff just goes away. All right, that neurasthenic quality leaves you the minute all of a sudden something exciting comes up. It's why Monday's a bad day and Friday's a good day. Thank God it's Friday. Why is Friday any better than any other day? Because you're going to a job that you don't like. All right, you're going to a job because you have to do it and you don't like to do it. All right, it's because you're going home to a place where you don't feel a sense of sanctuary and quiet and safety, that let your hair down and be whoever you are. And these type of neurasthenic ailments come up when a person is not engaged properly in life, all right, and not properly engaged. Let me read further. There was another thing I was read. What is a neurasthenic personality? Neurasthenic personality, a condition that is characterized especially by physical and mental exhaustion, usually with accompanying symptoms such as headache and irritability, is of unknown cause but is often associated with depression or emotional stress, and is sometimes considered similar to or identical with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'm sure that there are legitimate psychiatric, psychological, physical, mental conditions that warrant a diagnosis of this kind. But I would submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just looking in the mirror here, that these very same type of conditions come when you're having to do a job that you don't want to do. All right, that you're in a place where you don't want to be, and you have not yet identified who you are and what you want. And this is not a simple thing. All right, who you are and what do you want? What do you want? I'm reminded of that movie Good Will Hunting. You remember with Matt Damon and Robin Williams, and Robin Williams is asking him, "Okay, son, you're this smart, brilliant, guy. What do you want? What exactly do you want?" And he can't tell him. He says, "Yeah, I think I want to be a shepherd." He goes, "A shepherd?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think I'm going to get a little piece of land and buy some sheep and tend them." And that's when Robin Williams says, "Okay, get the fuck out of here." Okay, get out of here. All right, this idea of finding that what we want, it's not easy. But when you see people who have found what they want, people who have found a career path that they want, found a relationship they want, found the life conditions that they want, even if they're not paid the big money, even if they are not in just the right conditions or the best house or whatever, once they have found that path, those neurasthenic conditions tend to go away. All right, and again, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it happens. All right. All of a sudden, the whole thing changes the minute you get into a flow state of consciousness. All right. The minute that you enter into something that you know instinctively how to do, that it is that for which you were meant to be. You know that you know. You don't know how you know, but you do know. And all of a sudden, those that lassitude, that physical and mental weariness, that neurasthenic condition that's mentally exhausted. I'm exhausted. I don't feel well. I'm tired. I don't want to go. These are often caused by the mere fact that you have not identified what it is you truly want, and therefore you're stuck with something that you don't really want. And now you've gotten stuck in a quagmire. All right, a quagmire. What is a quagmire? It brings up these images of, the Scottish Highlands or the countryside with the tundra and these bogs that you will fall into and get stuck in, and you can't get out, where you sink up to your thigh in the ooze. I remember one time my dad got the car stuck, and it was in this sort of mud hole, and his idea of getting out was just to hit the gas pedal as hard as he could, and shot mud 100 yards in every direction, and this did not work. And it wasn't until we stopped, trying to force our way out, and started thinking about how to do it. We were slipping in this mud. I remember the car was like smoking, because he was trying so hard to force his way out of it with the motor. And it wasn't until he stopped doing that, and we instead of sinking deeper and deeper into the mud, we got some boards. We went over and found some pieces of wood, and we dug under it, and we shoved under it, and we got ourselves out of that mud. And I submit to you, if you don't want to be in this state of lassitude, this neurasthenia, you might have a good chance of working your own way out of it without going to a shrink. If you would just slowly and methodically look at your life and intuitively sense what it is you want, and then you may not be able to make a change right away. There's all kinds of issues with making change. Believe me, I know this. But there is a tremendous amount of relief from your neurasthenic condition. There's a tremendous amount of relief to be had in identifying what it is that you really want, what it is. How do you want life to be? And once you identify that, taking little steps every day to move towards that vision, moving towards the vision, and you get to go to sleep at night, saying to yourself, I got a little closer to my dream. I got a little closer to my vision. I made that call, or I read that book, or I looked up something online, or I went to a meeting or a class or some kind of a seminar or whatever it was. I got a little closer. And there's a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction when you have a dream and you get to go to sleep at night saying, you know what, I did a little something towards my dream. I did a little something. And I believe you'll find more of a break in your neurasthenia because you are moving towards something rather than being stuck in the quagmire. You're not just sitting there wishing life were different. You're actually, doing some things to get your car unstuck out of the mud, and not stuck in that bog. And because if you don't do a little something, things are probably not going to change. And so if you're not moving the vibration upward, even a little bit at a time, then it tends to go the direction of gravity. And as we all know, if you don't resist against gravity, guess what? You're flat on the ground, right? And so forming that vision and trying to move toward it, to use the boards and the various tools and the thinking, the intuition to get yourself and your vehicle out of the mud. I also got another word I like, and I didn't pull up the definition for it, but I'm thinking of it now. It's called pronoia. Pronoia, right? And pronoia is the opposite of paranoia. Paranoia, of course, everybody knows, is this notion that bad things are lurking and trying to get you. All right, paranoia. All right, that evil of some kind is hiding around every corner, and you're constantly in a state of fear. And pronoia, on the other hand, is this wonderful notion that the universe is all working in your favor. There's no logical reason for it, but that everything is working in your favor. That's pronoia. And I don't even know if it's a real word. I just happened to see it on the internet and I liked it. And if you are obsessed with pronoia rather than paranoia, I have a feeling your life is going to be a lot better, and you will drop these neurasthenic qualities, this neurasthenia. So having a healthy pronoia, believing the best in the world, the best intentions are out there for you, that people actually are a resource and they want to help you rather than being a threat and want to hurt you. Pronoia, being an optimist, it is very helpful because it lends itself to the thoughts, all right? The thoughts are what drive everything. And your thoughts have to be headed in a certain direction. And most of the time, you got to maintain them. You got to direct those thoughts into a higher realm. All right? And the belief that wonderful things are just on the horizon instead of horrible things are on the horizon. And you have a choice. You're actually a generator, a transmitter and receiver. And so what exactly are you transmitting out to the world and bouncing back? We talked about seismic exploration, geophysical exploration. We send out energy waves and they bounce back to us at a certain speed. And if we're sending out with our thoughts all the time, we don't have private thoughts. We talked about that. We send out these thoughts, these vibrations, and that's exactly what they are. Folks, if you want to understand anything about this world, you got to think in terms of frequency and vibration. And your thoughts are like vibrations, like an oscilloscope. Boop, boop, boop. And they go out into the world and they bounce back and bring back to you stuff that you're thinking about. And I'm convinced that this is the way. When you have a positive pronoia outlook, and you believe that good things are coming to you and you're projecting that on the world, guess what? You're far more likely that good things are going to happen than if you're paranoid about bad things and you're thinking, these horrible nightmares all the time in terms of, what nasty things are going to happen to you and how you're never going to get that new job that you want or never going to get that relationship, whatever it is. Because something's going to get in your way and thwart your efforts. If you're in a paranoid state all the time, then you're much more likely to attract those things which you fear. And so trying to develop the positive projection at higher vibrational thought is a good thing. And again, what drives Stevie the Guide's little boat here is this notion of the balance between the left and right brain, the raising of the vibration. And how do you do that? Dr. Joe Dispenza will tell you a good meditation practice. Many thousands, if not millions of monks of all different kinds will tell you meditation is the answer. There are millions of people on this planet who meditate. Most of them are not in the United States of America, all right? Because it's been discouraged here, and the traditional practices that loosen the grip of that left brain logical, that default pattern of thinking, that is the obsessive default pattern of thinking. That's the very thing that gets people locked into these negative patterns of, oh my God, you wake up every morning, you run through this, all the horrible things that are going to happen, the fearful thoughts, they get locked in this left brain logical. And the harder that left brain thinking gets, the less that right brain intuitive, that small still voice, is able to come up with new possibilities of a beautiful world and full of opportunity. And so if you're stuck in that left brain all the time, folks, it's going to be quite hard to come out of whatever pattern you're in. And if you happen to be in a positive pattern of thinking and you're stuck in that, well, that is not necessarily a bad thing. That left brain logical is there for a reason, but oftentimes it's the addictions, the compulsions, the drinking, smoking, overeating, not doing the things we're supposed to do to raise the vibration, comes in that locked pattern of thinking. And oftentimes paranoia is a chronic pattern of fearful thinking. And you got locked in. So the point of all that Uncle Remus tale, folks, is that a good meditation practice, or the other different natural ways to go out of your mind, all right? And if you think about it, that seems like a crazy thought, but going out of one's mind is not a bad thing if done properly. All right. A meditation practice is simply letting go of that left brain logical. They are techniques where you're not actively thinking anymore, and you become so relaxed in that left brain logical that the right brain intuitive has a chance to come up, has a chance to talk to you in that small, still voice. And you are not in a state of prayer, which is mental talking. You are in a state of mental listening, all right? And that is not, it's easy, it's simple, but not easy. That's what it is. Because we're in such a thinking left brain culture, to be able to relax that left brain logical enough that the right brain intuitive can come up, can shake up the snow globe of your mind, open up new possibilities and a sense of wonder, like a childlike wonder. Be as a child, the Bible tells us. Having that wide open possibility for all sorts of new things to come in. That is going out of one's mind. What they mean by going out of your mind is going out of your logical mind and allowing your intuitive mind to come forward, bringing about the balance in there. And when that balance happens, there's a raising of the vibration, a higher self-esteem, openness to new possibility, a lowering of neurasthenia, and a lowering of lassitude in your life. And so how does one arrive at this? The meditation practice and these other native ancestral practices that have been so sort of shunned in this country, the dancing, chanting, storytelling, languages, plant medicines, all the various ways. I don't care if you're a whirling dervish or you speak in tongues in your religion. These are all letting go of the left brain logical, going out of one's mind, and allowing the right brain intuitive to come into play. All right, what does this do? What it does is very much like what Granny did on the Beverly Hillbillies. All right, if you're old enough to recall the Beverly Hillbillies TV show, It's about these people from, the Smoky Mountains or somewhere out in Tennessee, and they strike oil and they come to the big city and they have a mansion, and so it's the country people and the city people, and Granny was the central figure, this dominant, matriarch of the whole family. And one of her favorite things to do is make moonshine in the backyard in a still, all right? And if you don't know what a still is, a still it makes liquor, moonshine liquor, right? And moonshine is a very powerful alcohol where all the other stuff has been taken out and it gets the pure essence. And how does it work? Well, you put all this sort of fruit or corn or other organic matter into a cauldron and you boil it, right? And you stir it for a while and let it boil. And then instead of letting all the steam escape, it's got this coil thing, and the steam all goes into this coil, and it's in the steam where the spirits are. And so the steam rises up through this coil. You don't get all the other crap. You just get the steam, which trickles and condenses in the coils, then drips out this pure essence. All right, this liquor, and it's really interesting how they came up with that. But let's see here. Here we go. So what do I mean by all that, with the moonshine and everything? We are very much like, all this junk that goes into the cauldron. In other words, we come into this world bright and shiny, all right? And then we enter into this quagmire, and we get covered with all kinds of gunk, all right? And our exercise through this basic training program here on Earth is to go through this exercise through the mud. I think of recruits in basic training climbing through the mud and running through all these emotional and physical exercises and all this difficult stuff, and then emerging at the end victorious. And we're like that. We get covered up with all this stuff, this negative vibe, this discouragement, and in so many ways, and we're assaulted on so many levels, and it shuts down our bright little light, that intuitive, that God particle, if you will, that sliver of the divine that's in every one of us, that gets covered up. And that's the part that knows what to do. That's the part that intuitively can shine the light and show you the way. But it gets covered up. And so, very much like a still, at some point, the intuition begins to cook. It begins to, the temperature of it somehow, and it may not happen in everybody, but it can happen in you. And what I submit to you is that there is if you take that cauldron and you put the fire under it, but you shut it down where nothing can get out, that thing can explode, all right, and cause all kinds of problems. There's this story of the Silver Trail Distillery in Hardin, Kentucky in 2015. This was the home of the famous alcoholic country singer George Jones. He had this famous White Lightning alcohol. It was made at this distillery. The Silver Trail Distillery in Kentucky blew up because some 50-cent relief valve wasn't changed or something like that. And Blue, these two guys, Jay and Kyle, were located many yards away from the blazing wreckage of what had been the Silver Trail Distillery in Hardin, Kentucky. And I think that's what happens to people when they get this neurasthenia. It's a sign that there's heat and pressure moving in them, and they've got to find a relief valve and that is a direction in one's life that's allowing, and this right brain intuitive, it is the relief valve. That's what it is. It tells you what you need to know, but it only is going to talk to you if you're willing to listen. And that means shutting up this left brain logical for a little while and getting instructions intuitively from your right brain. And this is how it comes to me, folks. Settling oneself down enough to allow this small, still voice to talk and tell you important things. That is the true essence of your spirit. That is the connection to God. That is more powerful to me than reading any books or hearing any sermons or listening to any lectures in college. All right, the ability to listen to the right brain intuitive is so completely important in one's life, and it is not an art that we're really taught. It's one that we have to come to. Mahatma Gandhi, I like this quote. He says, what does he say? God cannot be realized through the intellect. Left brain logical. God cannot be realized through the intellect. Intellect can lead one to a certain extent and no further. It is a matter of faith and experience derived from that faith. That's how one gets to know God. It's experience derived from the faith. It is an experience through the intuition. And that's Mahatma Gandhi. And Alan Alda, the actor from MASH fame, he says, at times you have to leave the city of your comfort and go into the wilderness of your intuition. At times you have to leave the city of your comfort and go into the wilderness of your intuition. What you will discover will be wonderful. What you will discover will be yourself. That's Alan Alda. And that, my friends, is what is the core of this problem, in my layman's opinion, of these ailments, neurasthenia and lassitude, and even this thing called fibromyalgia. I'm sure there are legitimate cases of that everywhere. And again, I'm no doctor or psychiatrist or medical professional, but it seems to me that when people have not found what they want and life has become boring and it's not the way they're supposed to be, and they don't listen to the Buddhists who say that do your best and then be okay with what is, when they're constantly consumed about the negative spin of the world and how it's not the way they want it, not the way that it should be, and not the way they wish it was, and they don't see a path out of that. They get stuck in this, boiling pot of all the stuff they don't want, and they cannot escape into the essence of who they are. Then they develop things. They may not die, they may not explode, they may not blow their brains out with a pistol. But what they do is, by the millions, what they do is they develop ailments, all right? They develop aches and pains. They're tired all the time. They have no juice for life. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to read a book. They'd rather drink and, help themselves lower the vibration. Let's drink some liquid chemical depressants, when we're feeling bad, huh? Let's drink something that's going to bring us down even further. That's a great idea, huh? I'm talking to myself most often here, because I know after 60 years, I've been on this roller coaster up and down. And my mission for me is to try to, instead of this up and down roller coaster of life, this lower vibration, higher vibration, is to bring about a steady incline. It doesn't have to be sharp and, I'm up at the top of the world, instantly. I'd like to be at the top of the world all the time, by the way. But it is a process of eliminating the garbage out of your, by distilling things that are not working for you, identifying what's not working, what's not bringing about your pure essence. Let's see, vocabulary.com says, when you distill something, you are boiling it down to its essence, its most important part. Whether it's alcohol or ideas, the distilled part is the most powerful, all right? And so a process of distilling. In short, to distill is to get to the spirit of the thing. Spirits, all right? To distill. And what are we trying to do here? We are trying to get to the very spirit of this existence, all right, to the very essence of who we are, and to distill some moonshine means to take all this garbage, this whatever all the raw materials are, and pull out simply the pure spirit out of all that and discard the rest. All right, that is the process, and it's not always easy, but we can take ourselves through our own distillery, and if we become very active, very deliberate, we begin to identify what it is that works for us and what it is that does not work for us. What it is that we keep doing all the time that is not taking us into a higher vibration, but actually lowering our vibration. Who is it that we are talking to all the time that it is drawing that vibration down? Some of the crap that's in our cauldron that's not being boiled off, and that we cannot escape from. What is it that we're watching on the internet? The internet's a wonderful thing in so many ways, but it's a horrible thing in so many ways, because you can get obsessed with things and watch things that are not good for you. They're right at, sitting there right on your desk all day long. And so what are you feeding this body and this mind and this spirit? And every day, it's not something you're going to solve this afternoon, all right? And astute people are artists at trying to make this higher vibration happen. What makes me happy and what does not make me happy? And what is it truly as I run down the clock of this life, huh? Tick tock, folks. Life is running out, and my lease on this body here is only so long, and then it's going to expire. My ticket will be punched, and I don't have any more time, as do you. So I submit to you that it's a wonderful exercise. Instead of just staying there stuck in the mud, your vehicle stuck in the quagmire down in that bog, that you become a student and enjoy the art every day of identifying a little something that you want and moving a little closer, than ignoring it, throwing up your hands and saying, in apathy, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. I might as well drink this bottle of Everclear. Drinking the spirits is not going to solve the problem. All right, it's not. It may add you a little daily comfort, but the fact of the matter is, it's constantly in a state of lowering your vibration. All right, alcohol is not a stimulant, folks. It is a liquid chemical depressant, And the only reason you feel a little stimulated when you drink it is because it is a very effective painkiller, and it makes you feel a little lighter for a little while. But the long-term effect, especially if you drink it all the time, is that it's lowering you down. It's lowering that vibration. And so the distillery process is a daily maintenance process of how can I be a little bit better? Can I do a little exercise? Can I take a little walk? This notion of Kaizen comes to mind. Kaizen, Kaizen, is a Japanese term that means small incremental changes lead to big results. All right, and that is a good way to go, especially if you haven't been exercising, if you haven't been reading, if you haven't been doing those things that are going to lift you up, and if you haven't been working towards that goal, if you haven't been writing a page or two of that book that you want to publish every day. I love this response. It's like somebody tells you, hey, you should learn how to play the piano, and you say, do you know how long that would take me? And the answer is, well, it'll take you just as long as if you don't try to learn the piano. All right. In other words, it doesn't matter how long it takes. What matters is that you want to. And if you don't do it, you're going to have to suffer the fact that you didn't do it. You didn't try. You didn't make any effort at all. And you're going to get to the end of this life. Hey, tick tock, it's coming. All right. You may die a quick death, or you may die a long, slow period where you look back at your life and regret. Like my old Sunday school teacher, Zig Ziglar, used to say, you're at the end of life, when you're sitting there looking back on it all, you're saying one of two things: I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. And I'm telling you, folks, you don't want to get to a place where you're looking back at your life saying, man, I wish I had written that book, or I wish I had auditioned for that play, or I wish I had joined that group, or I wish I'd quit that damn job and gone somewhere else. I wish I had done it differently. You don't want to get to that place. Where you want to be is, thank God I did that. I remember Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, who's a funny character. And if you've never seen The History of the Eagles, which is a great documentary on Netflix, I believe, that's worth seeing if you like the music of the Eagles, it was the number one selling album of the 20th century, the greatest hits album. And so a lot of people like the Eagles. And Joe Walsh, he was talking about when they wrote the Hotel California, which was one of the biggest songs to ever hit the planet. And he said, yeah, we were in a really creative mode at the time. And the recording technician, we happened to be practicing and playing this tune, and the recording technician hit the record button in the studio when they played that beautiful version of that song that's been so famous all over the world. And Joe Walsh, he says, thank God that guy did it, recorded it, and thank God we recorded that song. And when Joe Walsh gets to the end of his life, that's one thing that he will be grateful that they actually recorded something so beautiful. And sometimes, you don't think things are going to work out. Joe Walsh also said, and I don't know that I'll get the quote right, but he said, life can be this chaotic hodgepodge, and things are, going awry, and it's a total mess, and you say, my God, just what is going on? And you get to the end of it and put it all in a package, and it seems like a finely crafted symphony, but at the time it doesn't. All right. And so as you're going through life, there's all this sort of chaos and turmoil. But if you're headed in the general direction, it's like being on a sailboat, and you're headed in the direction of an island in the South Pacific. And you may be blown off course all kinds of ways. You may have storms. You may have your your sail disabled and drift a long way. There may be all kinds of things, but ultimately, you were able to get the boat running correctly again. You stay to your navigation, and you arrive at your destination sooner or later. Now, you didn't go in a straight line, but you went. And at the end of the story, when you're looking back and telling the story, you say, yeah, we had our problems, but we made it. All right, we made it. And that will be a day that you will say, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I set off on that journey. I'm glad I started taking those little steps. You know, Martin Luther King says, you don't have to look at the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And that leads to another step and another, and before you know it, you're far along the way of doing something that you intuitively know you're supposed to do. And when you do stuff like that, ladies and gentlemen, when you embark upon that path towards that moonshine, that essence of who you are, that intuitive knowing, you know that you know. You don't know how you know, you just know. And when you embark upon that and you're moving in that direction, guess what? Things like neurasthenia, and lassitude, and probably fibromyalgia too, all those things, tend to fall away. That fatigue tends to fall away. Those minor aches and pains don't seem to bother quite so much. Different type of body, mental, and physical fatigue don't seem to matter quite so much when you're tracking, on what you're supposed to do. When you're tracking on it, baby, it's like a bloodhound. You can smell it, all right? You sense that you're supposed to go in this direction. And after you've been doing that a while, you get into this flow state of consciousness, It's like these surfers, that surfer since he was a little kid, he's been, getting up on that board and falling off of that board and trying to figure it out and trying to figure out how the waves do, and working, left brain logical all the time. But once he gets to a point where he knows how to do it, and you put him at the Bonsai Pipeline Masters, which I want to go to one day, and the waves are breaking on the north shore of Oahu at 30, 40 feet or whatever it is, some gigantic thing. And you put this guy, on a surfboard into that swell. And he's had this training and stuff. And he gets into that tube and he knows the way. They report routinely that they don't even hardly remember that they were doing it, because it's such a natural flow state of consciousness. And I like the surfer analogy because I can feel that guy riding through the tube, and he can just feel his way, and the giant forces of the ocean and the wind and all the other things, he's a part of it. It's not a man fighting against nature. It's a man being part of nature. To be so in tune with that activity that he doesn't even have to think about it. You ever been driving your car on the freeway and you kind of, you're daydreaming and you snap out of it and you're 2 or 3 exits past where you were supposed to be because your mind was somewhere else. Has that ever happened to you? Well, that is a flow state of consciousness, all right? Your body already knows how to do that, and so it's driving the car without your brain even being there, all right? You already know, all right? And your intuition takes over. Now, it missed the exit. But the point is that any activity which you intuitively know you're supposed to engage in, once you get some experience doing that, it will come to you naturally, and you will feel your way through it, and your vibration will constantly be going up and up because you are going in a direction you're supposed to go, and there are thousands of professionals, men in particular, who get into these careers and they start making lots of money, and their wife and their family and everybody's all dependent on that big income, and for a while maybe that works, but at some point, and this happens to thousands of people, professional people. They show up in psychiatrist hospitals. They're diagnosed with fibromyalgia and neurasthenia and lassitude. Why? Because they don't like going to that job. They don't like it. And but they have to, because now they're hooked on the money. They're caught in something, and they wake up when they're 40, 50 years old, and they say, you know what? I'm unhappy. I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. But they have to, because it keeps the gravy train going, all right? And they feel a sense of obligation. So what happens? They start spiraling downward, folks. They spiral downward into an alcoholic habit every day, where they're constantly hanging out in a lower state, just to drink their way out of that mindset that they didn't want to be in the first place. But when you see people who are truly happy in what they do and where their life is, they don't tend to do that as much. It's not that they don't drink at all, but they're not constantly having to anesthetize themselves from the minor aches and pains of the world. They have distilled, who they are, and they've gotten the moonshine out of who they are, all right? And the essence, and they're headed. You ever see a good pastor, that's talking on the stage? He's just, he knows how to do it, all right? And he's in his element. Or you ever see a person who's a running back who's carrying the football and moving naturally through a whole horde of people who want to kill him. But he knows, he moves, and he has this instinct, and he is happy in his element. And so the idea is not that life's going to change instantly. It may, you never know when you start moving in the direction of your dreams. And great people. Henry David Thoreau says, walk confidently in the direction of your dreams, and you will, what does he say? You'll experience life unknown in common hours, or something like that. Walk in the direction of your dreams, all right? Paulo Coelho in The Alchemist, he says, when you want something, the universe conspires to help you get it, all right? What do you want, all right? What is it that you want? What do I want? I want to be a broadcaster when I grow up. And what am I doing here? What am I doing? As clumsy as it may be, I come most every day now. I've skipped a few, and I've been guilty of that, but I don't beat myself up. I want to be a broadcaster. I want to speak and talk about all kinds of whatever I want to talk about. And I think that would be a cool, fun way to make a living. And so what do? I show up here. I turn this thing on. I try to come up with something intelligent to talk about. And I'm going to do it every single day. And as I do that, as I move through that, eventually I hope it will become like that surfer riding in the tube, and eventually, maybe I'll get to enter into a surfing contest and win prizes, or get paid, and find sponsors. Who knows what? When you start to practice your craft, that you're supposed to do. I don't care if you're a singer, an artist, if you're an accountant or a scientist or whatever it is. I knew this guy named Jan Railsback, and he dreamed of working for NASA and sending people up to the moon and stuff like that. He was a civil engineer in the Midwest, okay? Jan Railsback. And Jan, if you're out there, I loved your story. He was a real estate client of mine here in Kerrville. And Jan, his essence was he wanted to use his engineering skills to work for NASA. And he was romantic. And he talked his wife into, uprooting and leaving a good paying job up in the Midwest when he was, in his 30s or 40s, whatever it was. It was late in life, and they had 3 kids they're trying to feed and whatever. And they moved the family down to Clear Lake next to NASA. He goes knocking on the door. They say, no, we don't have any jobs, And so he went and got a job with, Lockheed or Boeing or, somebody like that, and worked around. And, every 6 months he'd go and apply at NASA, and eventually he got a job there. And last time I talked to Jan Railsback, he was the chairman of the committee, what is it, the Risk Management Committee. And basically, they sat around and listened to all these people's ideas of what they wanted to do in outer space. They had all these different kooky notions of what they wanted NASA to do with their rockets and things, experiments they wanted to try and stuff like that. And Jan got to sit on this committee and listen to all this and decide what NASA was going to do. I asked him, what is NASA going to do, Jan? You know, I mean, what do you think's going to happen next? He says, very matter-of-factly, he says, we're going to build a base on the moon and we're going to launch rockets from there. And we're going to, you know, start exploring deep space. I said, you're going to build a base on the moon? He said, yes. And I said, well, what are you going to build it out of? He said, well, the moon rocks are basalt type stuff we can use for concrete. And there's ice on the dark side of the moon. We can go and get it and make water. And we mix it up, make concrete buildings. You know? And that was Jan's dream. All right. That was Jan's moonshine. That was what Jan dreamed of, you know, when he was way back, and there seemed like no chance that he was going to get to do that. But Jan pursued the dream like a bloodhound. He could smell it, and he kept, just going after it all the time, trying to figure it out, making calls, submitting resumes, reading books. How does it work, And eventually he got the door opened, and he got to move through several positions into, the head of risk management for NASA. I always thought that was an inspiring story, and someone who methodically followed the breadcrumb trail of his dream to get to a place that he could never have imagined. All right, and he is in a flow state, baby. Especially as he got closer to that higher place. I mean, he was in his natural element. And do you think for 1 minute that Jan Railsback suffers from neurasthenia? Do you think he suffers from lassitude? He doesn't. He may have his minor aches and pains, baby, but he doesn't, fall into a chronic state of, I'm tired and I don't feel well, because he's got stuff to do, stuff that he wants to do, all right? And that's what happens when your attention changes to something that you want, all right? All of a sudden, a lot of little, the minor aches and pains of life begin to drop off, all right? And you don't pay nearly as much attention. You don't have time to pay attention to a lot of that stuff because you are in pursuit of something that you really want, all right? And makes me excited. It makes me excited to keep coming to this thing every day and talking and, developing my craft and finding the moonshine in life, all right? Distilling the crap out of my life one by one, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual, pushing that stuff out and, following the breadcrumb trail of my dreams. And that's what I encourage you to do. Let's see, what else do I got? Don't get tied up in fruitless arguments about religion, politics, all that stuff. You can get tied down arguing with people and being in lower elements that have no way out, right? Getting entangled, just there. And I'll say briefly about arguing. There's a certain adrenal shot that you get by arguing with people. This adrenaline of, I'm right and you're wrong. And there's a short-term adrenal thing that happens. But it is not a long-term solution. It will not make you happy ultimately. The only thing really that will make you happy is to arrange your life in a way that you intuitively know it's supposed to be. In the career path you have, in the relationships you have, and the things you spend your time on, the hobbies that you have, the love that you share. The raising vibration is accomplished when you help other people and share the love of Christ. The love of Buddha, the love of Krishna, whatever you want to talk about. Love. I'll leave you with this because it's about 6 o'clock. A song is not a song until you sing it. No. It goes, a bell is not a bell until a song is not a song until you sing it. A bell is not a bell until you ring it. The love in your heart was not put there to stay. Love is not love until you give it away. I hope you have a great day. And it's Stevie the Guide here on the banks of the Guadalupe River here in beautiful Kerrville, Texas. And find that moonshine in your life. Find the moonshine.
It's time to say goodbye to Jed and all his kin. They would like to thank you folks for kindly dropping in. You're all invited back next week to this locality to have a heaping helping of their hospitality. Hillbilly, that is.
I love you.
Take your shoes off.
Bye.
Y'all come back now, dear.
This has been a Film Wise presentation.